You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 423. My name is Brando. Coming up a little bit later on in the podcast, as this is a two-interview episode, we have the lead singer from the band Saving Abel, Jared Weeks. He left the band for a while. He was the original lead singer, and he's back. They're back with more music and a new tour. And of course, we talk his 6 degrees of Guns N' Roses Bacon, which involves a very unique encounter with Duff McKagan that you will never guess. But first, we have a repeat guest on the show, Desmond Child. A couple years ago, got to meet him in studio, had him on the show. This time, he is a part of those radio tours that sometimes I produce. Sometimes I get to hop on the morning radio interview train when people are promoting something. So Desmond is here to promote his new memoir. And he's got a life to tell, Living on a Prayer, big songs, big life is the name of it. Talking about just his rise to the Songwriters Hall of Fame, writing with some of the best, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper. And we'll see what we can tie in with Guns N' Roses to him this time around. And so as I usually do, I sometimes hop into the interviews awkwardly. My coworker, Mike, is the tour producer for Desmond this morning, so I'm going to say hi to Mike first, and then we'll talk to Desmond, and we'll reconvene, and then we'll go on to Jared Weeks. How does that sound? Hey, Mike.
Hey, Brando.
Hello.
How you feeling today?
I feel good.
Are you well rested?
I have a 5-month-old. I'm never well rested.
Okay, I figured that. Okay, here is Desmond. You will have till just before, I'd say, make it till 29. Go ahead.
Hey, Desmond, how are you?
I'm doing so good. You have a 5-month-old?
I do.
Imagine having two, like twins. My husband and I were like schlepping those double strollers, and it was like intense. And one cries, and then the other one started crying in sympathy.
Oh man,
it was such an experience. So I'm so glad they're 21 now. Now they're crying for more money. Well, like another $1,000 in my account. I know that I'm past my budget, but there's always an excuse.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep him a baby as long as possible. So he doesn't ask for money now, but everything I earn just goes to him anyway.
He will.
It's too funny. Well, let me ask that then. When they're young, do you sing to them? Are you inspired to write music? Because a lot of things I'm sure over time have inspired you, but how much was having children? How much did that affect you in your songwriting?
Well, I always would sing them this little song. I would go, "Where are the boys? Where are the boys? Where are the boys, my little bitty boys?" They loved that. So anytime I got on the piano and sing that, they would like come over and quiet down, and it was kind of a lullaby. So I was lucky. My husband is incredible, and he's really the mom, dad, and I'm really just the third kid. That's all.
Oh, I like that. I sing too, but certainly not nearly as well as you. And my words, I can't write a song. It's just I just rhyme over.
I don't need the competition.
Okay, fair enough. And speaking of, though, you have no competition. So with this,
I do.
Autobiography.
I do, and her name is Diane Warren.
Fair enough. I can't argue there. When you were coming up, this is just maybe a simple question, a silly one, but when you were coming up with the title for the book, of course, Living on a Prayer makes so much sense, but you had a collection of titles and songs to pick from. And all of them could have been a great title for a book. What made Living on a Prayer perfect for your story?
because living life on a prayer. I've always been on a kind of spiritual quest, so that fit me. And big songs, yeah. Living on a Prayer is my biggest song, and big life, my life is bigger than my songs, that's for sure. So it kind of all worked together.
Hmm. How often do you speak with John Bon Jovi? Because you obviously have a major connection with him. Is it something ever casual, or you best buddies? Uh, what's your relationship nowadays?
Well, when we he's the godfather of my kids, so
Wow.
he's the most magnificent godfather. He's more interested in them than me, that's for sure. But when I first started with them, I was more like the mentor. And now he's the mentor.
Mm.
So he's like, Desmond, why are you doing that? I mean, you should listen to me. I'm really smart. Like I'm dumb.
Mm.
But I think he's right. Because guy's a billionaire, whatever.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, I didn't realize he was the godfather of your children. That's pretty that's very, very special. When people write, I've spoken to a lot of musicians and people who've written autobiographies, and usually it's come up that it's cathartic to write a story. But I feel like that's might be an easy question to ask. What was the most fun for you to relive and just kind of threw you back and being like, I remember when I created this project? What was the most fun um story of your life to relive?
Well, for me, really, it was the hungry years. Uh, Living with Maria Vidal. She was my girlfriend at the time. And we lived in a tiny little apartment, and we started our group, Desmond Child and Rouge, with Miriam Valley and Diana Grasselli. And we could laugh so hard, we'd fall on the floor, stomachs aching, tears. I mean, it was the funnest times. And I don't think I've ever laughed like that, and I miss that. So we're still working on music together and all that, but with everybody living in different cities, it's not quite as easy. But those are my golden years when before we made it.
Oh, I got you. And I guess in relation to this, because I have some questions for you from listeners, and I guess this guy is called, you can call him a listener, but you may know who he is as well. Peter Napoliello. He worked at Geffen Records back in the day, doing promotion, and he saw I was interviewing you, and he wanted me to share this story with you. He said, tell him a guy that you know who was a big club DJ in NYC back in the day, absolutely loved a song that few know about. The group's name was Desmond Child and Rouge, and the song was called Our Love is Insane. Ironically, years later, I would be promoting the same this man's singles, his songs, while working with Geffen and artists like Cher and others who he wrote for. So, do you remember Peter at all?
I kind of do, yeah, Peter.
Yeah, it's that's
He, he
the
made he made me rich. Yes, I like it very much.
I know Peter because you may. I mean, I interviewed you. This was like right before COVID happened. We met. I use a 6 degrees of Guns N' Roses bacon on this iHeartRadio podcast, this Q1043 podcast, and he worked with Guns N' Roses back in the day and made them millions, made them famous. So it's just cool that he has this story about you and he remembers you. And I still remember this joke you told me because there was no specific connection between you and GNR because A Sweet Child of Mine was not written about you. Or I think you teased me. You said Sweet Child of Mine was written about you, not Aaron Everly.
No, did I say that?
Jokingly.
Oh yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah,
No, I
for
wish I'd
sure.
written that song.
Hmm.
That's genius song.
Uh, I'm sure. Well, I guess aside from that, is there a song that's out there that you're always like, oh, I wish I wrote that, or
Okay,
you might
I'm
do any?
so jealous of Billie Eilish's song in Barbie.
Hmm.
What was I made for? I mean, that's going to win the Oscar, hands down. I mean, when that song is so touching and deep, profound, and as existential. I mean, she got it just right there with her brother and everything with that song. And you know, I was surprised how that song like hit me. So I'm jealous, jealous, jealous of, Billie Eilish and her magnificent song from Barbie.
I'm
What
a
was it?
fan of hers. I got to see her at Austin City Limits a few years ago, and she's a tremendous, tremendous talent. Um, I would be remiss if I didn't ask about Kiss, and because your disco days, of course, influenced Kiss. We spoke about your close relationship with John Bon Jovi. Has the relationship improved at all with Gene Simmons? Because you've done some interviews recently talking about the apology that he gave you, and because he didn't want to work with you. Because you just never know over time, people get older. Has he reached out to you and really given you the kudos for, a song, a fan favorite song? They mock it. They were on Stern recently, kind of the do song, but it's a great song. It's classic.
Yeah, I mean, it ended up as Kiss's biggest international hit. And so he never liked it because he felt it was off-brand. But I always love combining styles. And I've done that, to great success, with I Was Made for Loving You, which had a big share of Motown in it, like, Standing in the Shadow of Love. It's you know, sort of child of that song, and and Paul's a great fan of R&B music, always has been. But Gene's taste is really, more hard rock. So he always disdained the song. But there was this movie, Why Him? And the band is actually in the movie playing that song. Do you recall that? With what's his name? James Franco and all the
Okay. Oh,
crazy
okay.
movie, right?
Yes.
And so there he is playing I Was Made for Loving You in somebody's living room and with a smile on his face. And it's like, oh, I guess the check was big.
Yeah, there you go. That's all it takes, right?
But it was kind of a gimmick for him. He went on radio saying, we paid guards to keep Desmond Child out. When they made this album called The Elder, that they had not used any collaborators on because Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and everybody had started working with me. So they wanted to be opposite that. So they were trying to make a point like they were the real rockers, they didn't need, collaborators like Desmond Child. And so he made a gimmick out of it, but he said it like in 100 different interviews. And so I called Paul and I said, Paul, why is he doing that? I mean, why is he slagging somebody that's put money in his pocket? He said, Gene, I can't control what Gene says. And I said, well, that's really fucked up. Da, 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 da. So I, came home later that day and on my answering machine was like 4 words. Hi, it's Gene. Sorry. Click. And I say in my book, apology accepted.
You got a lot of that's getting
But
a lot
he's
out of
very
Gene.
respectful. Whenever I've seen him, he shakes my hand and he says, you're a very handsome and talented young man. He always says that.
Oh man. Well, thank you, Desmond, for sharing that story. And I look forward because even though you put your life in a book, you have a lot left to give and to give the world and songs to write. So I look forward to what you have coming up next.
Thank you so much.
You take care.
Thank you, Brandon.
Love Desmond. I really hope to get him on a third time because I'm kicking myself because I had this question in my head going in. And I'll say to you, yeah, of course I can. Sometimes I do when I started my career and going back to high school and college, doing interviews with writing notes and bullet points. But I've just, especially with these Zoom interviews, if I find myself looking away too often, and I do sometimes to get your questions, I keep those organized, I just lose myself in the conversation. And that's the last thing I want. So I rather forget a question, I guess, than just seem more awkward in the conversation, like miss what someone's telling me. I would hate that kind of thing. But next time I hope to ask him, which I wanted to, which is about perhaps in all the new GNR music, how he considers that as a songwriter, where you have these older songs reworked, by what was the classic band, but they were made by other players. So I just would have liked his thoughts on that. And I guess Baby Brownstone talking about him and children took the conversation in a different way. And speaking of which, we're going to talk about Baby Brownstone a little bit later on in the episode as well. There's some things I want to talk about concerning him. I wasn't expecting to bring him up like this. And if you may hear him in the far distant background, my wife is doing laundry with him, or he's just sitting in the bed and she's doing it because he really can't do anything yet. Oh, and before we move on to Jared Weeks, let me play that clip from Desmond, in case if you forgot, when he said, jokingly, of course, that Sweet Child of Mine was about him.
I don't know if you have a GNR story or even came close to writing with him or any of the GNR guys.
Well, didn't they write a song about me?
What's that?
Sweet Child of Mine or something like that, right?
Touche.
That was about me.
Okay. All right. You heard it here first.
Great sense of humor. Hope to get him on again. So anyway, moving on to Jared Weeks, lead vocals of the band Saving Abel. You remember that song, Addicted. I remember my beginnings in my radio career. I was listening because I was doing radio in Poughkeepsie, New York, and there's like an alt rock station there, WRRV, and they played the crap out of Addicted. Just a great song. But they have a new single out, Fire, with the video, and they're heading out on tour all over the country this fall. Into the Fire is the name of the tour. Fire is the name of the song. So I guess fire is the theme, I suppose. So anyway, let's find out more about it. And of course, his 6 degrees of GNR bacon. Hey, Jared, what's going on?
Man, it's a good day to be alive. Good to see your face. How you doing?
Right on. It's good to see your face too. I feel like, well, I guess I have heard your voice for quite many years, but to actually speak with you, I appreciate a few minutes today.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you're correct. I do feel older every day. Thank you.
Hey, I just turned 40, so I don't know. Maybe you'll laugh.
We're in the same boat, man. Same
Really?
boat.
You're 40 as well?
Yeah.
So people ask me, how do you feel? I'm like, because I just had a kid, I just told you. Old? I don't know.
You're not sleeping. Yeah. It feels weird to wake up with like a muscle pulled and people are like, what did you do? You're like, I don't know. I slept wrong. You're like, how do you do that?
I've never, how do you sneeze and throw your back out? Well, I guess that's 40.
It's ridiculous. It's, mentally though, I feel like I just became born, it's like a whole new life for me, taking my life back.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because in a lot of ways I feel the same way. I mean, we'll talk about that as well. Before we talk about the tour coming up, Into the Fire,
right,
and the new single Fire in that album, let's just go back one more single to Rebaptize, and your reintroduction or how would you, I guess, phrase it? Just being back a part of Saving Abel, because I don't know if I should admit this or not. When you left the band, I kind of stopped paying attention.
Yeah. You're not the first. It tends to it surprises me, how many people have said that. But obviously the guy that was singing kept the heartbeat in the band.
Yeah,
so
he did a great job.
Alive for me to come back, and I call this moment for me, just taking my life back. That's the kind of moment it was for me. It took a lot of consistency and hard work and therapy. I'm all about therapy, man. But yeah, it was one of those things during the isolation. I started focusing on. You always hear people talk about be the change you want to see in the world, but I actually took that seriously, and the only way to do that, is you got to look at the stuff on the inside that you're ashamed of and not proud of, guilty of, things that you just, the shadow work, as I call it, and I worked really hard to heal with those things. And it became a moment during the isolation where I called Jason and I was like, hey, man, we started recording some old songs. It was the Brent Smith and Zach Myers, Smith and Myers album that came out during isolation. And I'm listening to these songs, just acoustic type stuff. And I'm like, dude, me and Jason have so many of those songs. Like before we were Saving Abel, we were an acoustic duo, So I just kind of called him up and said, hey, like we can record some of those songs and just put them out there. I'm like, what the heck else are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
We're all just sitting here playing music in our garage for Facebook,
Right.
So we got in the studio and started recording those, and obviously, one thing led to another, which boiled down to me giving him a phone call one afternoon, and I was like, Jason, I'm ready to take my life back, and his response to that was, man, I've been waiting for you to say that for a few years now, and obviously this is where we ended up, and it's been really cool. It's been an amazing journey. It's pretty awesome to be your own hero. We write our own stories, that's how I live my life these days. And we do write our own stories, so we can be our own heroes. I'm just now getting to the good part, as I'm saying.
I love to hear that. And forgive me, I don't know why I said rebaptize. Baptize Me was the name
Yeah,
of the
baptize me. And that's what that song.
I'm Jewish, so I don't know. Of course, I don't know how to phrase baptize. I don't know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Well, that's basically what the song's about. Obviously, I grew up in a religion sort of like Pentecostal, and so obviously I have those roots. Here in the South, this is the Bible Belt. There's churches, every block. I had 6 uncles and few were preachers, so it was just always in my life. That's actually where I learned to sing. Singing in the choir. My grandmother and my mom were the choir directors, harmony, stuff like that. That's how I was taught all this stuff. But nowadays I'm more of a spiritual and consciousness type person. But speaking about that, that's what Baptize Me is about. It's about the journey that I took to get to where I'm at, to take my life back. And it's a song that tells us that we all have the power within inside ourselves to do things like that. We're very, very brilliant, beings. And I think it's important that we don't forget things like that. And that's basically what the song's about.
And I appreciate that message, because the secondary theme, I mean, you may have guessed the primary theme of the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, Guns N' Roses.
Absolutely.
It's a jumping off point, but
Yeah.
the secondary theme is mental health. I talk about
Absolutely.
that quite often in my journey. I think I'm approaching almost 8 years, I think, without alcohol.
Oh, dude, congratulations, man.
Yeah.
I'm a little over 3, so I'm still early in the journey, but it's getting better every day, I'm enjoying the crap out of it.
Hey, man, because I was, as George Thorogood, he made it sound fun drinking alone, but it wasn't. I was drinking alone, and now, I'm recently married with a kid. I turned my life around.
Isn't it amazing how you can make those changes in your life and create the reality that you prefer,
But you exactly. But what I love hearing, and I think people love hearing from people like you, and there's still that stigma of, you're a rock star. You have this at your disposal: money, girls, fame, hits. What is so wrong in your life? And that's such a terrible stigma, because I often quote, lucky enough to have had Dave Navarro on this podcast.
Oh,
and he said,
yeah, cool.
there's nothing external that can fill trauma, can heal trauma. Was that like a similar journey that you had?
Well, yeah, absolutely. For me, like, one of the biggest things for me was realizing, fear is actually not anything to be afraid of. Fear is actually a very good teacher. And some of the videos and people I follow and things that I watch, I retain what sticks to me, and one of the things I got about fear is that you should sit down with fear, as I was talking about shadow work. You should sit down with fear and have tea with it. Talk about, why do I feel this way? Well, what am I scared of? Have a conversation with it. But I've noticed, like, in my life, one of my biggest fears was always being alone. Because, obviously I've been self-medicating for, childhood trauma, things that I had growing up. I never had the tools to deal with life turned up to 11, girls, drugs, anything I wanted, It was kind of ridiculous, therein lies the problem, because afterwards all you're left with is habits that you bring home. And I was living in a very bad circular habitual behavior, habit, just seeing all the negative things in my life. Well, of course this happens. Of course life is this way. But using fear, my biggest fear was being alone. Not so much anymore, because I love myself and I know who I am. But, back in the day, I had to actually fly to a couple of different countries in the past few years and play as Saving Abel. Of course, they had their restrictions for some of the bases for the U.S., the United States Marines and the Army, and places that we were going. You had to be vaccinated. And a couple of my players, from their hearts believed, and they just didn't want to be vaccinated, which I'm totally fine with that. But I had to hire other players to go with me in a different country. And to me, that was like one of my biggest fears is like, I'm doing this alone. You know, Jason's not by my side. Like, holy crap, how's this going to go? But I tell you, when we got there, you know, we went to Japan and we went to Canada. And I remember the 3 Days Grace show in Canada. It was the first show I had to do by myself. And I just remember standing up there on stage and realizing at that moment that some of the greatest things in life are on the other side of fear and what you're scared of and what you're afraid of. And I remember that moment realizing that I no longer have to be afraid of this anymore, you know, because I'm not alone and I do have these people around me, you know. And it was just a really good lesson for me. So now I kind of lean into fear to see what it's teaching me and where it's going to take me. And, you know, do I have plans of actions or do I just blindly fall off the cliff, you know? Sometimes in life, you know, in my opinion, it's some of the best things in life. You know, you get some of the greatest joy out of little things like that.
For
So
sure.
fear for me has been a wonderful teacher.
Was it kind of the inspiration for Fire and the very interesting video where you're talking to a young version, or you're
Yeah,
yelling
that
at
was
him?
my son, the little kid in the
I
beginning.
was
That
gonna
was my son Scout. Yeah, he woke
I was
up.
gonna ask you that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, the inspiration for that song also came during the isolation. Fire was one of the very first songs we wrote. And honestly, it happened during the George Floyd incident. You know, during that time period in our history, in our lives, it was a weird time. You know, it's like politically, it was like pick a side, and then you had the George Floyd going on, and you know, being honestly, my heart just started hurting because I'm looking around and I'm like, what is wrong with us? You know, it's like the whole damn world has gone to hell. You know,
Yeah.
and that's where, you know, as I was talking earlier, be the change you want to see in the world. But in order to do that, you have to look at the things on the inside. You have to change from the center out. And one of the messages in that song is that we have the power in ourselves to change ourselves, to better ourselves, to search for a better version of ourselves every single day. That's why it says, you know, don't play stupid anymore. You had everything you needed all along. And, you know, when people are pushing your feet into the fire, you know, sometimes you're looking at things that you don't want to do, or sometimes you're looking at things that you're scared of, and you keep talking yourself to back out of it. Well, sometimes you have to just jump in there and see what it is and see how you learn more about yourself. That's one of the things that I've learned about myself is things that life throw at me now are no longer problems. They're more of opportunities to prove who I really am, I am the person that I say I am, you know, and problems or these opportunities give me the opportunity to show people that I am kind and that I do the actions that I say that I am, that I am there for people. I can be there and be strong enough mentally for other people to lean on, you know, and I think that's my message that I'm doing now. It's obviously not about egos and BJs anymore, you know. But
Good band name.
yeah, I know, right? But it's more of a mission, you know. I feel is to be a bridge for the people. I feel as if I've been on both sides, and I
Sure.
feel like, you know, to be a bridge to help people to realize the value and how worthy they are to live their dream lives and who they are as people and to love themselves. And that's something like on this journey that has allowed me to grow and learn and be the best version of myself every day. And man, I'm just proud of it, you know, because I made a commitment to myself. And I'm like high-fiving myself, going, "You did it! You're still doing it!" You
I'll
know?
high five you through Zoom.
Yeah.
Same
All
thing.
right.
We're both doing it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I know we only got a few more minutes, but I got to ask on this in the worst transition maybe I've ever made on on the subject of BJ's. I'm talking about Addicted.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, that's I always wanted to know because I know the song, the actual lyrics when you're
Yes.
going down on me.
Yes.
And it's a radio hit that says when you're rolling around with me.
That was such a weird they said going down on me was too dirty to switch it to rolling around with me. And I'm like, wait, I'll just do what y'all say, whatever, you know. It was kind of confusing too. I'm like, one's almost dirtier than the other, but they both mean the same thing. Okay, all right, guys. You know, it was one of those situations.
I mean, you hear the songs, other songs on the radio,
Yeah.
and what they like. Just Cardi B, any of her songs. Holy crap.
You remember at one point we were like canceling a Christmas song, but the #1 song in America at that time was WAP. I mean, it's like,
What a world we live
wow.
in. But no, baby, it's cold outside is
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
dangerous for our children. Anyways.
Yes, yes, yes. Anyways, here's WAP, you know.
I see. I was always curious about those because that happens a lot with artists. I mean,
Yeah, well, even with our second album, the first single off of it, or not the first single, but we had a single, "Sex Is Good." I don't even play that song anymore. I mean, I'm just not that person, but it happened to be a dad moment. I walked downstairs and my 2 little girls were singing it at the top of the songs. And I was like, nope. I was like, nope. I think Addicted's enough. You know what I'm saying? Like I might play it at a bikers rally or something, but it's hard for me, like who I am now and being a dad, to sing that like at fairs.
That totally, yeah. That must have ruined that song for you right away. Oh man, that's hilarious.
Like,
I'm glad I have a son.
I got one of those too now. He's never heard it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I couldn't find. I call it the 6 degrees of GNR Bacon. Again, I think. All right. So what's your connection to Guns N' Roses? Whether you're just a fan or concerts or you've met any of the guys, what do you feel about Guns N' Roses?
So as I said, growing up, I grew up in a church family, and I wasn't allowed to listen or watch MTV, secular music, any of that stuff. But I do remember, going to my grandma's house. She used to let me watch the MTV countdown, because what does she care? It's her grandson. He's happy, eating oatmeal in front of the TV, But I do remember the first time that I saw November Rain. It just blew my mind. That video was so epic to me. Like every time the countdown came on, I was waiting on it. But my story that connects me to Guns N' Roses was actually, it was a very awesome moment for me throughout my career. But we were doing crawfish bowls or festivals, those seasons, like the barbecue fest, and just tons of people. And Duff McKagan it was when he was doing his solo thing. It was back probably 2010, maybe 2011, maybe even 2009. I'm not even sure. All the days kind of blur together. But I had my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, my fiance. She was pregnant with our first daughter, Coda, and I had Mohawk, our Yorkie, out on the road with us.
Okay.
So we're walking out of the tour bus, and my wife's got her big belly, and Mohawk's just walking behind us. He was such a cool dog. All of a sudden, Duff comes walking up, and he's like, "Pardon me, madam, can I rub your belly?" So he starts, and she's like, "Sure," so he's rubbing her belly, and then he's like, "Oh my God, whose dog is this? Is this your dog?" So he picks Mohawk up, and for literally like an hour and a half, we just followed Duff around as he held our dog, petting it and rubbing my wife's belly. But it was so cool for me. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting here looking at Duff, and I'm like, holy crap, this is happening. I manifested this or something, man. This is amazing.
That's so random.
He was so polite. He was one of the kindest, very soft. He was so polite to my wife. He's like, "I just love seeing you're pregnant, you're vibrating." So you remind me of when, and he would go back and tell stories. And it was just really a genuine moment, man. And I'm grateful for that. Like, I'll never forget things like that as he's petting my dog,
He just introduced himself though, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. He wasn't just like, he wasn't starting rubbing the dog in the
He's
belly.
like, yeah, he came up, and of course I knew who it was, and he obviously saw that. But I was like, "Nikki, this is Duff, hey." And he's like, "May I rub your belly?" And I'm like, "Oh, Andy's polite. This is amazing."
That's funny.
He was a very genuine person, and I'm totally glad that happened. I'll never forget that.
That's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
You never find that story out. That's so random, and it shows people like who they are in their natural state. And
I'm totally grateful for that, and it was amazing.
That's too funny. Were you tempted to be like, "Hey, I'm in this band,"
Well, I think we were headlining that night. So it was, during the good years when we were up at top headlining shows and stuff. So he might have been aware, but like to me, it's just like when I get home, my kids don't look at me as a dad, as a rock star. They're like, "Hey, Dad, go make me a Pop-Tart," I'm sitting here looking at Duff, and I'm like, holy crap, that's Duff McKagan. But like, he was just so polite and kind. He's like, "Don't pay attention to me. How are you guys doing?" And I just thought that was so cool, man. It honestly, people in situations like that help keep me humble, because I want to be like people like that. Like, I want people to feel better about themselves after talking to me. And that was that's one of those situations in life where that happened. So
Well, mission accomplished today because I feel better after talking with you.
sweet, man.
I mean, you must feel with this perspective, you must be so excited for this upcoming tour.
Dude, it's been a lot of hard work. I will say that, but replacing old habitual behaviors with just new habitual behaviors, it's really brought a lot more joy out in my life, and to be present in the moments like I had with Duff, like I probably wasn't sober, but it would mean just as much to me now, but I would be able to kind of remember it probably a little better. But I've learned to love myself a whole lot more, man. And I'm confident in who I am. And when nobody else is around, I know who I am. And that's something that I haven't had a lot of in my life. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of it, where I've come from and who we are and what we stand for now.
I love it. I'm happy to hear that. And again, Baby Brownstone, that's my nickname for him. I started to cry. So I think he's like, Dad, take me away from Mom.
Hey man, you get to that. That's awesome though, man. I love my kids so much.
Awesome. I mean, Jared, this was a pleasure, and I really hope we get to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate you, brother.
You got it. You take care.
Yeah, you too, man. See ya.
Bye. Cool guy. Just another one of those interviews that makes me a bigger fan of the band after I speak to a member of the singer, guitarist, or whatever, because you just know the people behind it, and it makes you appreciate it more, which is kind of what we do here with Guns N' Roses, right? We love the music more because of the people who wrote it. That's kind of what music should be, I think. It's not just face value. There's a deeper meaning. So let me just wrap up. I'm going to do this under the segment because it wasn't a direct email or message. It was more of a comment that's now deleted. We'll get into it, but let's do it under the segment called Mr. Mailstone.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Mr. Mailstone is an appropriate segment because we're going to talk about my 5-month-old soon. On the 26th, he's 6 months. The son, Harrison Rex, a.k.a. Baby Brownstone. And I've been watching so much Blue's Clues lately, man. He's of that age where he can acknowledge some things, but not others. So you're just trying a bunch of things out. And of course, I've tried Guns N' Roses, playing that for him, whether it's the real music or the lullaby version. Same thing with my wife with Dave Matthews and the Beatles. And sometimes he reacts, sometimes he doesn't. But for whatever reason, you put on Blue's Clues, because I've tried a lot of different cartoons, shows that I watched when I was a kid. So he seemed to gravitate towards that. And of course, that soundbite was a hybrid of Blue's Clues and Guns N' Roses. So I guess I had some force of, seeing into the future with my Blue's Clues time with my son now. So it would either it's Blue's Clues or I can't believe this. He reacts to the song by Phantom Planet, California. Because I rewatch random shit, so I'm not going to criticize my wife. She is rewatching the OC. I never watched it. I know of the show, but that was the theme song. So we'll play him the full version of it, and more often than not, it calms him down. California. I can't explain it. Anyway, I'm bringing up Baby Brownstone because this was a comment. Because Mr. Mailstone is a segment where I read messages from you, whether it's through email, DM on any of the social media, and I do get a lot of you that send me, but I'm not going to address that now. So maybe another Mr. Mailstone in the future, because I get these just awesome messages from you all the time. So, but this needed to be brought up because I don't know. This is something I was thinking about as I became a dad, involving him in the podcast and starting out that first episode with him, just holding him as a few weeks old, interviewing Tommy Stinson. And I knew it can either go really well or really poorly. But it's a podcast. If he started crying, I could pause it. Whatever. That's the way I saw it. Because who wants to listen to a baby crying? Who wants to be interviewed with a baby crying? But if I'm just holding a baby, who cares? Right? I'm here in my own apartment with my studio. My son is here. He's not going to school for quite some time. So he's here. So let me just, hold him. What's the big deal? And I think he would be a fun character as he gets older to teach him about Guns N' Roses and all that stuff. So anyway, from what I've seen, it's been a success as far as your response and my guest's response. Whether I talk about him or whether he's physically there with me on the podcast, getting my guests to talk about their family, their kids, their parents, I think it makes it more personal to them, and we're bonding in this short amount of time that we have to talk in this interview. So we're having this bonding experience, and I've done that. I try to go that route with mental health. Hey, you're talking about your addiction issues. Here are my addiction issues. It's not to talk about myself because I'm a narcissist or anything like that. It's I guess, for lack of a better word, strategic in the way that we should talk about mental health. I know it's going to help me bond with my guest, with my listeners. It's good for me to talk about. So I'm aware of what I'm doing, but with good reasons. So kind of the same thing with holding my son, just holding him. And again, if it became annoying where he's always crying, I sometimes think I'm like, am I talking too much about my son? This is Guns N' Roses podcast. What am I doing here? Even though I make every post or thing about him Guns N' Roses related. Hell, his fucking, I call him Baby Brownstone. That's Guns N' Roses related enough, I think. And you seem to all get a kick out of that. So we've been having a great time, amazing responses, especially the previous episode with Paul Rogers. I mean, I pretty much got that interview because I was holding my son. Him and his wife met him because I was doing my radio tour version of my job. And they just were happy to talk about it. And that segued into talking about his grandchildren on the album. So it like opens things up. So anyway, I bring this up because this guy commented in a now deleted post and thread on Facebook that it was exactly when I interviewed Paul Rogers at the beginning. And he's like, what's your son's name? And him and his wife are playing peekaboo, and they're waving at him, and he's smiling. Really, like, I think to myself, I can't wait until he understands who Bad Company is and what this is. That is forever online, and he can look at that. When he was 5 months old, that he was interacting with the lead singer of Bad Company from Free. It's just one of the best rock voices of all time. He has these moments where I'm holding him with Tommy Stinson, and it's just like all these great moments I've had with him. And this one dude, whose name I will leave out of it because the end result is he inboxed me with an apology, but there's more to it than that said unfollowing. That's all it said. Out of all the things, the stupid jokes that I make, or that's the reason why you're unfollowing me, and I just commented because of my baby. What else could it have been in such an innocent clip of me talking about my son meeting Paul Rogers and his wife, and him talking about his grandkids? Like, where's the offensive material in that? So he goes, yup, I think it's disgusting what you do, but you do you. I couldn't believe that. I said, why would I ever want such an ignorant, judgmental person following me on Facebook as a listener? Goodbye. Fuck off. Like I couldn't believe that. I told my wife and she was offended by it, and it didn't, I had to screen grab it and I posted it as its own post on Facebook. It's deleted. Maybe you saw it at the time because you know what? Maybe I don't know. Am I one of those parents that you see online that totally, uses their kid, It always bothers me that Jimmy Kimmel skit that's funny to everybody else, where the parents steal the Halloween candy and you're making your kids cry. I don't think that's funny. I did talk to my wife once jokingly. I wasn't gonna do it. Ever see those videos where you throw a slice of cheese at an infant and they just react like all stunned? They're not gonna get hurt from a slice of cheese, but I don't know. So we're like, she's like, let's not do that. Okay. She didn't need to twist my arm. It was more about just talking about it and laughing. So Am I abusing, am I exploiting my son by holding him and interacting with the guest? So it continued, and I deleted the posts at his request because he apologized after, because all of you came to my defense, whoever commented. One of the best comments was, "Wait, what is this? I need more context." And I said, apparently because I hold my son, my baby, while interviewing rock stars, that makes me a bad father. And this person said, in opposite land, maybe. I thought that was the funniest. What a great comment that made me feel good, because that guy's comment made me feel really bad. I have this great moment with my son, and my guests and my listeners seem to love it. And he has said that, yes, I think you're exploiting your baby for clicks. First of all, for clicks, I don't think you know what a good amount of clicks mean. I'm not taking it at home. I'm not making bank by any amount of clicks. If I was a click person, I would do clickbait material. I've teamed up and I'm friendly with, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but Brett from Alternative Nation, because you do what you do. He always supported me. He kept my stuff in context. If I needed a headline reworded that I didn't like, he did it for me. Whatever. Blabbermouth, all those sites, I appreciate all their coverage. You know, if you think it's clickbait, I don't write it, whatever. But I'm not going to tell them how to do their job. But if I could do the same thing, but I don't. So here I am using my son, with my son as my co-pilot. And if you want to think I'm using him as a prop, I mean, what kind of prop? He's smiling. He's happy. I wouldn't show you if he cried. I would pause it. You see episodes where I put myself on mute and I give him to my wife. Like, that's enough. I'm not going to make him suffer just because I want to hold him here on camera. So even though, again, he apologized, but he felt the same. He says, I still think it's wrong what you did. You know, that's what you're doing on social media. And I'm just thinking, like, I've been posting pictures of him wearing Guns N' Roses onesies, all these wonderful things. And this is the video where you decide to say something. He regretted saying something and should have just left it at that. Fine. And I'm not going to force him to believe what I believe or vice versa, whatever. So I respected him, kind of agree to disagree kind of thing. But I just wanted to put it out there because, well, do you think I'm exploiting baby Brownstone? I want to keep him involved. I get a lot of comments saying, well, you found the new star of the show. That's where I thought we were. That's what I thought it was. Then I got this comment. I will say I am really glad he apologized because I recorded this part already and he was a lot more angry because and I never want to do it come off so angry. That's, I don't know, maybe that's why I'm not as popular, or I get the clicks that I need, because you need to be sometimes an angry hot take personality to really break through. But I have enough anger in my life, so it's good that I had a little breathing room. And he did say, it got out of hand situation, because you all came to my defense, which I appreciate. Again, and some of you were showing pictures of your kids, and but I again, I know it's different than you're just bringing your kid you're making your kid a Guns N' Roses fan, as opposed to you're doing a podcast with him. But I don't know. I made a choice. To sometimes, because it's not every episode, because it doesn't work all the time. He's a baby. He's on his own schedule. That's why it's taken me a little bit to get these interviews out to you. Actually, I've been wanting to, because they're a week or so old. I know in the podcast world it doesn't matter, but I needed to record these in between parts, and I'm usually watching him and he's sleeping. He's watching Blue's Clues. My wife currently has him in the other room so I can do this for you. I spend most of my time being a very attentive father, and I think even during the episode I'm pretty attentive. No one's called me out. There have been a couple times I have accidentally hit his head on the microphone. Okay. So if anything, if you want to call child services on, you could do that. But I got him, it's a rattle. I got him a microphone rattle. So he has his own microphone off. If it gets appropriate for him to have headphones at one point, because now he doesn't need to have that other than aesthetics. why subject his ears to any loud noises? So I'm certainly not abusing him at any rate. But am I using him for clicks? I don't know. He's cute. If I am, who gives a shit? Am I using my cats for clicks? So I mean, it's just unbelievable. People are like, the internet never disappoints. That was another comment. You'll find there's that meme that says, you want any proof that people argue about anything? Here's a picture of a rock. And it's kind of the same thing about that. It wasn't because this scene goes through my head from the Office version, the US version of The Office. And I need to say that because I don't know in the world you're listening to me now. You might like the UK version of The Office. I didn't get too many references went over my head to get the UK version with Ricky Gervais. So this is when Michael Scott left and Steve Carell, and they got Will Ferrell in to be the boss, and Jim and Pam wanted to kind of win him over, so they would introduce him to their children, and he acts all, oh, they're so cute, that's a cute baby, and then it just cuts to the where he's just talking to the camera alone, and he says that baby can be on the magazine cover of Babies I Don't Care About. And that goes through my mind all the time because, hey, I have Facebook too, personal Facebook. Friends of mine that post way too many baby photos. I don't want to be that guy. If you see baby Brownstone, it's going to be in a cute GNR onesie, not just to post him. Even if that gets out of hand, tell me, hey, go back to asking whether you prefer User Illusion 1 or 2, and ask that question again instead of posting your baby. Or if it gets distracting in episodes, let me know. This is our show. I'm figuring this out. I'm figuring out fatherhood. I'm also figuring out how to have a baby as a co-host. So anyway, actually, let's do one more Mr. Mailstone. Again, usually an email or a DM you sent me, but sometimes a comment that's left on a post. And yes, baby Brownstone, who's in the background now on the floor playing. I posted the lyrics of Civil War, right? And I just really hope that there will be a day where they lose meaning. Of course, should I talk about the Middle East on a Guns N' Roses themed podcast? But there are Guns N' Roses fans all over the world. And I got this message, this comments rather, on, again, me posting the Civil War lyrics. This is on Facebook. This is from Sharon. I live in Israel. We're living in literal hell. We woke up to an absolute nightmare Saturday morning, which was a holiday. This is my favorite GNR song since I heard it, and I've been feeling like it's the most relevant for us here in the past 6 months, because there was an internal conflict about law changes. There were protests from both sides, and we were so divided. But this, no one's worst nightmare ever got to this. We are broken. I haven't been able to listen to this song because I know it's going to hit different. I just can't. Oh, and I have an engagement party next week and a wedding in 2.5 weeks, which are both canceled as we are at war, and my fiance was recruited to the army. Anyway, thank you for acknowledging what we are going through. So what I said to her, and I'll say now, is I am so sorry for what you're going through, Sharon. Please stay safe. This is a scary time in this world, but this is an escape. This is an escape for you. This is an escape for me. So I hope I can provide that, at least, for myself or for you. These podcast episodes talking about our favorite band could be escapes from the horrors of life, because there are some good things out there. All right. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. You all stay safe out there. Until the next one, when will you see it? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.